I got this 01996 Turbo for cheap. It's a project car, and basically the reason it was cheap is because it's a piece of shit. The list of all the things this car needs is pretty big, but I have shrunken it down a little bit in the last couple of videos. We fixed some check engine lights, some ABS and traction control lights, took off some old nasty window tint, figured out that the tires on the rear are completely shot and ordered some new ones, cleaned up the inside of the car, though it still smells like smoke, replaced the shifter bushings and a whole bunch of other stuff, so we're getting there. Another major issue with this car is the massive oil leak. So that's what we're going to be fixing today, hopefully. Got a whole bunch of parts for the Porsche, but I'm running out of daylight, so this is going to spill over into tomorrow. But I got, I believe, everything I need to fix the oil leak and do some preventative maintenance while I'm in there and while the engine's half out of the engine bay. We're going to start with cleaning up the crank where the crank seal and crank hub pulley are going to go on, because there's just a little score mark where I believe the old crank seal was sitting. I could just barely touch it with my fingernail, but that may have contributed to the oil leak. I got a GT3 crank pulley. None were in stock for this car, and the ones that I could find were outrageously expensive, so I got one used. I butchered mine up a little bit. Got a new crank bolt, got a new serpentine belt, got the cabin air filter, I got an oil filter, a whole bunch of stuff like that. So first thing to do is work on cleaning up this crank. Here we have the culprit, guys. So you can see back there, it's just a tiny little score mark. I can hardly feel it, but I'd like to at least clean it up a little bit. I'm not even sure how far I can get in there. I'm not going to go crazy. I don't want to remove a whole bunch of material. Just want to try to make it just a little better. Something else that was suggested to me was to actually grind down the back of this new seal a little bit, so it rides in a different spot. So I'm going to test that out with the old one. I don't love that idea, boys. So I think I'm just going to try to run it as is and hope for the best. I'm just hoping the new seal will fix it. If it doesn't, it's not the worst thing in the world to pull it all back out. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would really suck, but kind of just is what it is. Luckily, I have the perfect size socket to drive this guy in there. Looks nice and flush. This is just time for the crank pulley. Let's see if I can remember or even figure out how this belt goes on. I feel like I can figure it out. Wow. I think I got it. I'm completely out of light. It's probably going to call it for tonight. I'll pick it up tomorrow. Crank seal's in, crank pulley's in, new crank bolt is in, new serpentine belt is in. Decent start. We've got daylight again, fresh new day. Let's get this thing finished up. I want to hear it running with no leaks. I might be asking for a lot. engine's motored back in. Okay, I think the top end of the engine is done. Now, other than the airbox, I guess I need that airbox, aka this stupid thing with a filter on it. I don't like that. I don't think this bolt is correct. I think somebody just threw it in there. It leaves it all freaking loosey-goosey. I'll find something better. This should work a little nicer. That's a little better. The plan is now is to put the mufflers back on and then fire it up. I don't want to put everything back together just to find out that it still leaks or something else leaks. Got some shiny new V-bands because the old ones were busted up and had like wing nuts on them. Just kidding, the ones I got are too big. I guess these are 2.5. Guess I'll just have to make them work for now. It's together well enough that I can start it. To say I'm nervous is an understatement. I feel like I either didn't fix it or I caused more problems. Only one way to find out. So far, so good. No leaks or anything yet, so surprise. Everything seems okay for now. I think it's fixed. However, I did not do a good job cleaning the underside of the engine. There's still some old oil on there, but I think it would have been leaking by now how it was before. Alright, after letting it run, I let it sit here for like half an hour. Let's hope it's dry underneath. She looks dry. I can see what I meant, but I didn't do a good job cleaning under here. There's still some crap. So before it would come right down this hole. And it's completely dry in there now. So I think it's fixed, but man, I should pressure wash under here because there's just dried, caked oil like everywhere. And it looks like crap, and that's annoying. I'm pretty stoked. That's one major problem down. As long as it just doesn't decide to start leaking later, that would be disappointing. All right, time to put everything else back together, then go for a drive. thing I got some lightsabers on the way, because there's nothing left holding either of these in there. We'll have to get some fat washers for now. I'm gonna clean under there first. While it's still jacked up in the air, I might as well. The car's basically done, but while it's jacked up and the wheels are off, I might as well just clean underneath the engine like I wanted to. Quick pressure wash now that the engine's cooled down. That way I'll know for sure if anything and what's leaking. This isn't water, this is sweat. That was a lot of work. Alright, I'm gonna leave it jacked up, let everything dry, come check on it tomorrow. Hopefully the leak is fixed, and then we'll go for a drive.
The next day.
So it's been sitting all overnight. I don't see any drops underneath it. I'm a little concerned because it's angled, so maybe the oil isn't reaching where it was leaking. I'm hoping that's not the case. Let's see what it looks like underneath. I still don't do a great job cleaning under here, but it's kind of hard to do without a lift. But I can tell you where it was coming through before right there is completely dry. Now I do have a question for you guys. These seals here were leaking, I guess because I loosened this piece up when I disassembled everything. So I'd like to replace these seals. I just don't know what they're called. So if you know what they're called, let me know. I'd like to replace both of them on both sides. Seems like it's pretty easy swap, and looks like it's probably pretty prone to leaking. Other than that, that wraps up everything underneath. I can lower this thing down and take her for a spin. Now before I go on a test drive, I get to install these new lightsabers because my taillights are pretty much falling out. I have some giant washers on this side, which somewhat work, but over here it's a lost cause. Yes, more pieces just falling off as we speak. Much better. Nice. Much better. Little drive, make sure everything is a-okay. Yep, still smells like smoke. Fortunately, when I took my seat out, I forgot to disconnect the battery, and now my airbag light is on, but that is the only light that's on. Just kidding, I just destroyed the front end of this by driving it off my driveway. Oh boy, that's not good. Just kidding, that drive was very short-lived. Goodness gracious. It's not one thing, it's another. this is not going as planned. All right, well now it's as good a time as ever to replace this hideous front bumper anyway. What a nice piece of machinery that this is. In other news, check the oil. All is good there. Need to add a touch of oil, but I'll do that when I change it. I guess in light of all this, I fixed the oil leak.